So, what happens when a country is out there trying to play peacemaker on the world stage while its own house is basically on fire? Well, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating story about high stakes global diplomacy and the deep, deep cracks it can expose back home. You really have a tale of two worlds colliding here. In one corner, you've got this incredibly tense naval standoff between global powers, and in the other, you have a nation trying to broker peace, all while its own foundations are shaking. So let's start where the action is, out on the water. Okay, let's set the scene. With so much of the world's attention on conflicts like the one in Ukraine, it's easy to miss that other flashpoints are heating up. And a big one right now is this really tense naval standoff between the United States and Iran. So the United States has essentially drawn a line in the sand, or, in this case, a line in the water, with a naval blockade of Iran. But here's where it gets interesting. According to ship tracking data, that so-called red line is being crossed. A lot. Just take a look at this. We've got 4 vessels here, 3 from Iran and 1 from Russia, that have reportedly just sailed right on through the blockade. Now, this isn't necessarily a sign of weakness. It's actually a huge clue into the U.S. strategy. See, they're trying to project strength, but they're also being super careful to avoid a direct fight that could spark a much bigger war. This is all about calculated pressure, not total war. Right, so if the goal isn't to stop every single ship, then what is the strategy here? Well, analysts are calling it a face-saving playbook. It's this really clever way to manage public perception and, claim these diplomatic victories without ever having to fire a shot. And here is a perfect example of how this whole thing works. Step 1, the U.S. makes a big public accusation, saying China is arming Iran. Step 2, China, of course, denies it. Then comes step 3, the brilliant part. The U.S. announces a victory, claiming China has now agreed not to arm Iran, even though, no actual agreement was ever made. It is a masterclass in controlling the story. And right in the middle of this delicate international dance, one nation has stepped up to be a pretty surprising mediator, Pakistan. So you might be asking, why Pakistan? Well, it's because they're in this really unique position. Iran trusts them, but they also work closely with the United States. Other countries in the region that might have been able to help, they're seen as too compromised or just not fully on board with U.S. interests. So this puts Pakistan into really powerful, but also a really, really tricky spot. And this gets to the absolute heart of the matter. Because from the outside looking in, Pakistan is playing this essential role as a peacemaker. But back home, there's a growing storm of criticism. People are asking a tough question. Is the government so focused on getting praise from other countries that it's just completely ignoring the crises blowing up within its own borders? And when we look at the source material, it paints a really stark picture of that internal turmoil. We're talking about a deep, deep crisis of confidence in the very institutions that are supposed to hold the country together. I mean, the allegations are incredibly serious. You've got a judiciary that's seen as biased, civilians being put on trial in military courts, and this widespread feeling that elections just don't reflect what the people actually want. And kind of looming over all of it are accusations that the military is way too involved in politics. It all points to this massive erosion of trust. This quote from a vlog by Imran Khan just cuts right to the chase. The criticism is basically that the leadership acts all tough and powerful at home, but on the international stage, they appear weak and pleading. It's a really powerful statement that just captures the deep frustration that a lot of people are feeling. And look, this isn't just some abstract, high-level political drama. These alleged failings in the country's institutions, they are having a direct and often painful impact on the daily lives of ordinary people all across Pakistan. Let's just talk about the energy crisis for a second. Get this. Citizens are paying a staggering 2 trillion rupees a year for electricity that is never even used. How on earth is that possible? Well, it's because of these things called capacity payments. These are deals that lock the government into paying power plants for energy they could produce, even if nobody actually needs it. This chart just lays the whole problem out perfectly. The country has the ability to produce 45,000 megawatts of electricity, but peak demand, it's less than half of that, at 19,000. That massive gap, well, that represents a colossal amount of wasted money that the public is being forced to pay for, all because of old deals and a failure to invest in cheaper energy. And the energy crisis is just the tip of the iceberg. the problems seem to be piling up everywhere. In education, you've got allegations of political figures' names being slipped into student exams. In government, there's a suspicion that public jobs are already promised to someone before they're even advertised. And in healthcare, this is terrifying. Reports of infections spreading among kids because of reused syringes, which are apparently being met with official denials instead of an investigation. So it all brings us back to this one absolutely critical question. When a nation is so focused on its image and its role on the world stage, who's minding the store back home? And what happens when those foundations really start to crumble?